The ballroom froze. 300 guests stared as the bride, in a gown worth millions, lifted her voice like a whip. She mocked the maid, laughed at her simple shoes, and ordered her out in shame. What no one knew, not even the groom, was that the maid she humiliated was his mother. The chandelier blazed above, scattering diamonds of light across silk gowns and polished marble. Laughter swirled like champagne bubbles in the air. It was the wedding of the season, the union of a billionaire heir and his radiant bride. But in the midst of elegance, cruelty found its stage. The bride's words rang sharp, slicing through the music. "You dare bring her here, in rags, in my wedding?" She pointed at the maid, her voice soaked with scorn. 300 guests turned their eyes upon a frail woman standing by the side wall, clutching a tray with trembling hands. The maid said nothing. Her silence was a shield. Her eyes lowered, her posture still. But her heart beat a storm inside her chest. The bride and her vanity. Clara, the bride, was known for beauty, wealth, and her hunger to be admired. To her, elegance was power, and humility was weakness. She had grown up with luxury, never knowing the ache of empty pockets or the sting of labor. Tonight, with every guest watching, she wanted perfection. No detail could disturb her fantasy, not a wilted flower, not a misplaced chair, and certainly not the presence of a woman whose plain dress and worn hands seemed to her like dirt on marble. Clara saw only a servant. What she did not see was the truth behind the quiet woman's eyes. The groom's secret. The groom, Daniel, was young but wise. Beyond his years, though born into wealth, he had not forgotten the hunger of his childhood. His father had passed when he was a boy, and his mother, now standing humbly in the maid's uniform, had worked her hands raw to keep him fed, clothed, and alive. She had chosen silence over pride, working in shadows to raise him with dignity. Daniel had begged her to live openly as the matriarch of his fortune, but she refused. "The world respects wealth, not sacrifice. Let them see me as they wish," she had whispered. So, in her quiet way, she had disguised herself, serving at the edges of his empire, never seeking applause, only watching her son rise. Tonight, she came not for recognition, but to witness the joy she had long prayed for. The conflict in the ballroom, but joy turned bitter when Clara's eyes found her. Clara raised her voice high, ensuring every guest heard. "This is not a market stall. Who allowed this maid to stay in my sight? Remove her at once." Laughter rippled from a few corners of the room. Others shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Silence filled the spaces between cruelty, as 300 guests chose complicity over courage. The maid lowered her eyes. Her lips did not tremble. Her silence was heavy, unbroken, dignified. Escalation and silent resistance. Clara stepped closer, her words sharper. "Look at her shoes. Torn. Ugly. How dare such filth stand in a hall of royalty?" She leaned toward the maid, her perfume thick with roses, her voice dripping disdain. "Do you not know your place?" Still, the maid did not answer. Her silence was not weakness. It was strength, a strength that Clara could not understand. A few guests exchanged glances. Some whispered, but no one stepped forward. Only Daniel watched in stillness, his face unreadable, his hand tightening on the edge of the table. Foreshadowing the twist, Clara, lost in her cruelty, sought approval. "Do you see?" she called to the crowd. "This is what happens when boundaries are not kept. We cannot let shadows pollute the light of such a day." She laughed, certain of her victory, blind to the storm gathering in the room's silence. For the groom had seen enough. The unexpected power shift. Daniel rose from his chair, his tall frame casting a shadow over the bride. The hall fell silent. Even the music choked into stillness. He walked slowly toward the maid, and then, with deliberate care, he bent and took her hand. His lips brushed the work-worn skin, and his voice, steady and firm, carried through the hall. "This woman you call a maid is my mother." Gasps echoed like thunder. Glasses slipped from hands. Clara's face drained of color. Daniel's eyes burned with quiet fire as he turned to the guests. Every stone in my empire was built on her sacrifice. Every breath of my success is her gift. She is the queen of this night, and none shall speak against her." The iconic words he turned back to Clara, his voice like iron wrapped in silk. "Love that shames the humble is not love. Respect that vanishes in public is no respect at all." The maid, still silent, lifted her gaze at last. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but her dignity was unbroken. In her silence, the entire room felt the weight of honor. The climactic payoff guests rose to their feet, not in laughter but in reverence. One by one, they bowed their heads to the maid. The silence of shame turned into the silence of respect. Clara, trembling, reached for words. "But, nonne, kame." Her empire of vanity crumbled in that moment. For what is beauty, if it lacks kindness? What is wealth, if it lacks humility? Daniel placed his arm gently around his mother. Together, they walked through the hall. The crowd parted, heads lowered, hearts heavy with the lesson they had just witnessed. Outro with reflection. Respect is not found in silk gowns or golden halls. It is found in sacrifice, in humility, in the silent strength of those who labor without applause. A maid may wear plain shoes, but dignity makes them shine brighter than diamonds. And so, the world was reminded. Never measure worth by appearance, for the hands that build empires often bear the heaviest scars. Where are you watching this story from? What does true respect mean to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that honor the silent heroes among us.